If you're walking up a hill, turn around, walk down a hill. We can't bring the boat ashore until everyone's accounted for. We have 16 people today. We have seen an occasional tick, not gonna lie to you. The only mammal we have out here other than humans and the dogs are voles, but we do have a deer swim over here every once in a while. So when you're done your trip today, we've seen 2 this summer, okay? So just be aware. We also have poison ivy, but as long as you stay on the trails, you won't be exposed to it. We cut it back out. One of the trails is right behind my husband. It's the Win-Egan path. He cut that last summer. It's actually really quite pretty. It goes through the shade. The National Park Service Invasive Species team were out here last month. They got all excited because we have the best example of a cedar maritime forest they've ever seen. We didn't even know it was there. So if you walk through there, if you're coming up a hill, look to your right. There's a bunch of cedar trees that are like 40 years old. They think it's amazing. Anyway, so that's the Win-Egan. It'll end up bringing you up to the top plateau towards the houses and the lighthouse. Over here, you'll see a sign that says the Chapman Trail. Captain Chapman was our very first lighthouse keeper. That's a really easy trail. It meanders a grassy trail to the campground. I'm going to take whoever wants to come with me to do the history tour up the main trail. What I will tell, if anyone just wants to go for a picnic, the best place for a picnic and views is if you walk the Chapman Trail to the campground. There's picnic tables there and a really pretty view of the sound. If you go down where the Chapman sign is, there's 5 steps going down. To the right then is the Fog Bell Trail, which will walk all the way along the cliffs up to the lighthouse. I usually recommend people do come up to the lighthouse first and then come back down the Fog Bell Trail, okay? So if you guys want to take off, that's fine. If you want to stay with me, if you go off independently, the Lightstation has red roofs. If you are in a land area that has a green, gray, or black roof, turn around and find a red roof and come back. It's really hard to cross the boundaries unless you choose not to read the signs. But just so you know, the Lightstation has all red roofs, okay? So what, come on up. Oil houses that were built around 1900, and I told you ours was the prettiest oil house in all of New England. That's because it was built with the rocks you guys just walked over. So they were frugal New Englanders. They used the resources they had. The walls on our oil house are about 2 feet wide. The slate roof was refurbished last year. The roofer actually came out and told us about 80% of those slates are original to the build in the 1900s. However, history changes frequently when you do a little more research. We're walking up the main trail. It's always been considered the main trail. It's labeled on the survey from 1891 as the main trail. The survey from 1891, however, had the oil house on the left-hand side of the main trail. We found a picture when we were filing things away this spring of Edward Rowe Snow, who was the flying Santa. He was flying over the Lightstation in 1936, and someone took a picture overhead of his plane, and there were 2 oil houses. Essex Heritage, who owns the property now, had no idea that this actually existed a second building. So Brian and I, in our infinite boredom, got our garden loppers. We're overrun by invasive species of bittersweet and honeysuckle. You'll see as we walk up here, the hedge is about 12 feet tall and about, 50 feet wide. We cut through it. We found the other oil house, so come on up. So in 1891, on the survey, it was labeled as oil house. That was right when they were probably dual purposing this building that existed. It was originally the coal shed, because you'll see all the coal that's surrounding the foundation layer underneath it goes this way. Nothing penetrated it. So we were very, very fortunate that we found it as a find. It was just kind of a fun thing that we like to do out here when we're bored. And if you stand where the doorway is, it lines up perfectly with this oil house. You know, the U.S. Light Service really liked everything to be just so they had a perfect alignment. So this was kind of fun. No one even knew it existed, and we found it. That kind of gives us a really good feeling after 5 years that we were able to leave this for everyone. It was fun to find a lot of artifacts. We found a lot of the china that we actually dated it. It was a hotel china pattern from the 1900s. So most likely it was part of the Winnegan Hotel. And, you know, being a frugal New England light station, when the hotel burnt down, anything that existed, they probably brought it over here. So this also could potentially have been used as the dump when it went down, the walls went down. So anyways, this is one of the fun things. We rewrote history this year. All right, well, okay. So first, okay, there you go, you figured it out. This is my husband's favorite spot. We saw that there was an oak tree here. So I went in and lopped off all the top of the trees so we could have a picture of a view of the Salem Sound. And it's, we stop in shady spots. There's not a lot of shade on this island. So actually that's a place where, yes, we do sit and, you know, watch the boats. If I can't find my husband, he's usually there with his earbuds listening to music, watching the boats sail by. So the keeper's house is here. Remember I told you we have red roofs. Brian and I volunteered to be able to live in that house. It's 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. The assistant keeper's house is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. The solar system that we put in 2019 to light all the houses is just over here. I don't want to block the whole thing. Oh no. But there's plenty of time to take pictures. So we'll come on working up here, and then we'll start with the history of how our white railed porch. That's the bathroom. If you go in a green railed porch, you won't find a bathroom. So if you need a bathroom, this is it. I will tell you, I make a joke of it, but it's fairly true. The ghost here on Baker's Island likes to lock the door. So when you're finished using the bathroom, if you could just please make sure the door stays open so the ghost doesn't lock it for the next person. Okay, so the keeper's house. 1798, Congress decided, with the urging from Beverly, who used to oversee our island, that we needed an aid to navigation here. They put a day shape up. If you're a boater, you might know what a day shape is, but it's basically a shape you can only see in the daytime. So we had a ball on our roof, and that was really great, but if a ship came in at nighttime, or it was foggy, you couldn't see a day shape. So then we went on to 2 lanterns on our roof. That was the day that Baker's Island was known as a 2-light station. That's really important to keep in mind over our history of our lights. So basically we had the 2 lanterns, and that was working really well until the keeper's house disintegrated into almost nothing. The city of Beverly again asked Congress, please appropriate funds. We need a real lighthouse. This is a main commercial shipping channel for the whaling and for commercial use. So in 1816, they appropriated the funds, and the first lighthouse that was actually a tower was built out here. She was kind of small, and I call her a she because he's the guy. She was a smaller lighthouse. She was octagonal, granite, but encased in wood. So we had 1 light, but remember, Baker's Island was always 2 lights. So a commercial vessel, the Union, was coming back in during a nor'easter. 1817. The little tower was built in 1816 and became a 1-light station. They didn't have social media back then. So basically, the Union saw 1 light in the middle of a nor'easter in December and said it must be Boston Harbor. So he piloted it in as if he was going into Boston Harbor. He ran his ship aground just on the ledge out here, destroyed all of the cargo. However, no one was injured. Joseph Perkins, who's one of our most prolific keeper out here, saved everyone, got them all ashore. At which time Beverly goes, we better get a second light. So in 1820, Congress approved the funds. The second tower was built. Once again, we were back to being a 2-tower lighthouse. So Pa Baker, my big guy that's still standing, was built in 1820, and he was lit in January of 1821. So now we're 2 lighthouses. This is awesome. Let's move over this way. Let me just show you a few things, and we'll go up a little farther. We do have a duck pond over here, which we're completely dried out because we're in a severe drought. But there's a white rectangular sign over there on the boundary near the homes. And there's another one over here. That's the boundary. Remember red roofs? Gray, green, and black? If you see a lot of little birds flying around, like this, we're also a congregating area for the purple martins, which is a swallow-like bird. So in the next week or so, we'll have thousands of them. And all of a sudden, they'll just all fly up, they'll swarm around, and come back down. So they eat all the bugs this time of year. And then all of a sudden, one morning, we wake up and they're all gone. So we're big, a lot of purple martins are born out here, but basically they just come from everywhere. So they just start flying around. The assistant keepers were there, low men on totem poles. The keepers had a breezeway that went from tower to tower. So basically, as we're progressing through our history of our life, we were doing really well, and all of a sudden, we had two lights. So on charts, we were just considered two lights. Thatcher Island is two lights, but they're really tall. So everyone knew the difference because of the height. So how did we all of a sudden be able to become a one lighthouse island? Mercury. Mercury is a lubricant. Remember all the times when we used to break the thermometers and push the mercury around the thing? Yeah, I know. It's a wonder we're all alive. You never wonder about this? So basically they figured out if they put our lens, which is a fourth order Fresnel lens, on a bed of mercury, it would easily rotate. Well, there you go. We've just changed the footprint of our lighthouse because now we have a rotating light. The little lighthouse, Ma Baker, she was built in 1816, was decommissioned in 1916 because we figured out how to basically move the big, better, healthy-looking lighthouse moving around. We'll show you pictures, but the way they made it work was a grandfather clock mechanism. They had chains and counterweights. So every day the keeper would have to basically wind the clock to allow the lens to rotate around. All right, in 1816, Ma Baker's light went out. Here you go, history question, guys. Everyone gets the first historical event that went on during that time. There's two, though. I'm going to challenge you all. Between 1916 and 1918, what two historical events were going on in the world? A little bit. World War I. What was the second one? We just went through COVID. Does anyone? The flu pandemic of 1918. So basically, if you remember correctly, if you've read the history books, the flu pandemic actually started in Fort Devens. Because basically all the soldiers were coming back. They were basically decommissioned in Fort Devens. They got on trains, went out to Midwest, to Texas, and spread the pandemic via the train system. So all of a sudden, we're all short-staffed because we have World War I is just wrapping up and we're running out of soldiers. They're coming home. They're unfortunately dying of the flu pandemic. So the light stations were all short-staffed. So even though our little lighthouse the light was put out in 1916, she didn't get taken down until the fall of 1926 when we were fully staffed again. On an island, nothing leaves an island. It gets pushed off a cliff. So Ma Baker, she was octagonal of granite encased in wood. She went off the cliff in October of 1926. If you walk down the Fogvale Trail, the steps that you first walk down are the pieces of Ma Baker. We also found all of her, not all of them, of the wrought iron stairs. Okay, she was encased in wood. In 1927 of the spring, this sun parlor was put on this house. I'm creating history on this one. I'm a romantic. The wood of Ma Baker had to be repurposed. Within 6 months, all of a sudden, there was a sun parlor on our keeper's house. My favorite place in the whole island to stay is in our sun parlor. So I'm fairly certain she was Ma Baker. Volunteer groups. We have a really great core group of volunteers, but if anyone has time on Wednesdays and they want to come paint or do carpentry projects or whatever, come on out. The latest progress has been changing the wooden gutters. A lot of times we paint. We've changed all the windows. It's pretty busy out here on Wednesday. All right. So this is the breezeway that would have connected the back of the lantern house. You can actually see where that window is. It would have connected all. Who's seen the movie? Might be the potato launcher. Don't take it too seriously. Who's seen the movie The Lighthouse with William Dafoe? Okay. That lighthouse is actually in Nova Scotia. But when we sat and watched it, it looked very much like our footprint, with the breezeway that went all the way from one spot to the other. So the keeper's seniority gave them the ability in January not to go outside. The assistant keeper had to come up the hill and light the light. So my other piece of history, everyone's been to the U.S. Constitution. Do you know that the U.S. Constitution is only alive because of our caretaker, lighthouse keeper, Joseph Perkins? Because during the War of 1812, the USS Constitution was being chased by two British frigates just out here. Joseph Perkins, who was the lighthouse, but he was also able to get it all the way into Marblehead under the cannons of Fort Sewell. The frigates couldn't follow because they didn't have the history of all the cliffs and rocks that are out there. So our lighthouse keeper was the one who saved the U.S. Constitution. So this past July 4th, it could leave the dock, turn around, fire its cannons. It was only because of us.